Welcome to our pod. By that, I mean on Wednesdays we read. I'm Hannah.
I'm Laura.
And we are two best friends who usually do a deep dive into a new book series, one book at a time. But sometimes we are four best friends. And Hannah makes 2 or 3 people read a book that was, in fact, terrible.
Let's back up. We're 3 best friends, and Hannah might be our friends at the end of this episode.
Hannah is excommunicated for making us read this book.
Oh my gosh, there is an excommunication in the next book. So like you guys are missing out.
No, what?
Well, in every good Amish book, someone has to get shunned, guys. So like you find out that there was a shunning previously. Just no spoilers. I know you guys cannot wait to read the rest. Oh my gosh. But today on the podcast, we are inviting Sara and Lilly of Fiction Fans fame to discuss our nostalgia book club with a Hannah's Choice, which we all know are always painful and never fun because we read Lurlene McDaniel's Angels Watching Over Me. Guys.
It was a book.
It was certainly something.
None of you have any experience with these books, so I'm going to add some context. Lurlene McDaniel's was an author that I grew up with sort of cursorily through my sister. One of my older sisters adored Lurlene McDaniel's, like read a whole bunch of these novels. And they were the type of books where I emulated, like with my sisters, they were all much older than me. So to me, these books meant like becoming an adult was being old enough to read these books. Because my sisters who were like, I had a sister who was a teenager who read all of these books. So I was like, oh, one day I'll graduate to these books. And then I did graduate to them. And I remember reading about 5 or 6 before I kind of moved on from that time period in my life. But I like to describe the Lurlene McDaniel's wave movement as the sad girl pipeline. You start off with Lurlene McDaniel's and it feeds you straight into Sarah Dessen, down into the Jodi Picoult, and out into the Nicholas Sparks. That is the sad girl pipeline to me. And it's mostly just white women reading kind of tragedy porns, where something sad happens to a white, beautiful woman who is very straight-sized, and people are sad about it. And you read them and you're like, my heart is breaking. Just so you guys know, this book is a Christmas book, so we are doing this at Christmas time. So Merry Christmas, everyone. So what were your guys' thoughts about Angels Watching Over Me?
Just right off the bat, that we should all feel bad because we celebrate Christmas. Wrong.
Yes.
According to this book, that is.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
I mean, in this book, it does have kind of an agnostic woman finding religion and saying, I don't know, that Virgin Mary seems a little far-fetched to me.
Like, that was one of my favorite quotes. Maybe for a little context, Hannah, I don't know if you want to give a little plot overview for the listeners.
I'm sorry, what listener hasn't been reading this book?
I mean,
because
this, to me, was not that popular of a book, so I feel like a little context would help.
I had never heard of Lurlene McDaniel's until you mentioned that we would be reading this book.
Same.
To be perfectly honest.
Lilly, have you ever heard of Lurlene McDaniel?
No, I had not.
Okay. Well, I grew up in a specifically Catholic environment, so I do wonder if she kind of had the flavor of like the God Girls, where it's like, oh, these could be on the shelves at a Catholic school.
I went to Catholic grade school though.
Oh, and you still did it?
And I just never,
never on your radar.
She was not on my radar at all.
I don't know, because I do know like people come out of the woodworks for her. Like people will be like, oh my God, I remember her books. I read all of them. I do think it's a lot of girls who probably had like, did your mom read a lot of romance books growing up? I don't know if there is any overlap. Anyway,
my mother did not read any romance books.
I do feel like
I'm aware anyway.
Lurlene McDaniel's was a flavor of like moms who read romance books finding similar books for daughters at an appropriate age group. And these are technically like fall into that weird sphere. So for all the listeners who have no clue who I'm talking about, Lurlene McDaniel's was an incredibly prolific author in the late 90s, early aughts, who wrote like so many books. There's like over 50 plus books, and they're all sad. They usually revolve again around a white girl getting cancer mostly. They always have the worst names. So like Mom Don't Let Me Die, Too Young to Die, How Do I Say Goodbye?
Mom Don't Let Me Die. What a classic.
It actually is one of her more well-known ones. One of them was
because of the title, obviously. Who isn't gonna pick up a book titled Mom Don't Let Me Die?
So she also had ones that like there was a Lifetime movie created from one of her books. So the one I chose, she also had a flair of going into weird religious things. I chose The Lesser of Two Evils. This was one that my sister had actually like told me the plot of when I was a child. The second one was a girl going on a mission and saving a baby in Africa who had a cleft palate. And I didn't make us read that one for obvious reasons because I didn't think we needed to read that. In the second book, she gets incredibly sick and her prettier sister has to go back to Africa to save the baby. That is an actual duology in the Lurlene McDaniel's book. But the one I chose for everyone was specifically because one of my older sister read it and like was obsessed with this trilogy and would talk to me about it. So I read this and then I was like, oh yeah, I loved it too. And then later in life, I'm like, why did I love those books? Was it only because my sister loved them? But in this book, we meet Leah, who is probably a neglected child at the age of 16. Her mother
she certainly
gets married.
Sounded like it.
Yeah, there were so many times when I was like, where the hell are her parents?
The inexplicably independent high schooler is like my favorite of the
book. Like, yeah, and that's like all of these books. It's always like some like wise beyond their years 16-year-old girl facing death and like doing it with a proud look on her face and apparently makeup while she's in the hospital. So in this book, we find Leah. She is home alone at Christmas while her mother is in Japan on her honeymoon to her fifth husband, Neil.
Because this was probably in the 90s when everyone needed a bad stepdad figure, and they're like, "What should we name him?"
Except
Neil.
He's actually
he's
not
a wonderful stepfather.
I'm just gonna throw it out there. If you watch the Santa
hates
Claus,
him.
if you watch the Santa Claus, Neil and the Santa Claus is actually a good guy too, and they make him out to be the bad guy because Tim Allen is the real villain, and Neil is actually very understanding, but they just want to be terrible to somebody named Neil.
Well, just so you know, they do actually. You're supposed to love Neil by the end of these books because he also gets cancer in the third book. But
that's how you know you're supposed to love him.
Yeah, because he gets cancer in the third book. But her mom is off on her honeymoon to her fifth husband, and Leah, after dropping her mother off at the airport, inexplicably breaks her finger, goes to the doctor, and they're like, we need to rush you to Indianapolis. And so you're going to be stuck there for the holidays while we try to figure out what's wrong with you. During this time, Leah gets told that she has cancer, and she also meets a nice Amish family where their littlest sister, who is 5, is getting treated for a snake bite next to her.
No, it's a brown recluse bite.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
They mentioned that, which is a spider that is like extremely rare and poisonous.
Oh, right. It was a spider bite. I apologize. And
of course
during this time, this little girl Rebecca is being visited by a nurse at night who Leah likes to see and likes to say, "Oh, she's so nice." And then during that time, we find out that she's not a nurse and she's probably some creep in the hospital.
She's probably a pervert.
And during the end, we figure out that she is likely an angel. Which by the end of the series, Leah is not like, "Yeah, she was definitely an angel." She's like, "If she were an angel, wouldn't she be coming up to me again?" And I'm like, honey, like, there are so many things that happen in these books where it's like Gabriella, who is the angel, she's definitely supposed to be an angel in universe, and then Leah is always like, but what if she wasn't? People seem to still be dropping off like flies around me. And it's like, okay, but she also comes and visits you with a dead Rebecca in book 2, just so you guys know. So like,
there are a lot of things about this book that I was like, this is wild. But I think one of the things I did appreciate was that throughout the book, we do have a girl who is questioning Christianity. Like, she's actually saying some of these things out loud, and she's like, the Virgin Mary, that seems a little far-fetched. Or like, I'm not saying one way or the other, like Christianity is bad. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I do appreciate that the author isn't just like having the character immediately accept it, like, yes, angels, that's what it is. So that was something that I appreciated about the book.
I don't know. I feel like her questioning of religion was only there. I felt like it was only there to make her transition into someone who is very religious, like more,
and it
quote,
goes that way
unquote,
fast.
moving. So
Yeah.
I didn't appreciate her questioning, because I was like, I see where this is on this religion pipeline. Like,
yeah, it goes there fast because at the end she does buy a Bible and writes to her Amish friends that she's been reading the Bible every day, which I was like, okay, we should have just left that out. But at least there was questioning in some aspect.
I do like that she is someone who's like, hey, I wasn't raised with religion, so some of
Yeah.
this is just really weird to me because, like, yeah, it does have a weird, like, I will be Christian by the end of the series, which surprisingly, she really isn't. Like, there's weird God moments where she's still always questioning God, but she's never like, well, I'm going to go to church this Sunday. Like, it's always kind of a like, well, if God's there, I have some questions for him. And that's kind of the only way it goes. Lurlene McDaniel has a weird view of the Amish people. Every other page is like, Amish people keep to their own. You're not going to befriend them. And it's like very much using Amish people as a weird, like, let's look at them and just study them and not treat them as real people. And I didn't love that.
No, what I was getting into is like that was probably the only thing about the book that I liked, because the rest of it I was just like, I do not like this book. There's so many things.
I liked when it ended. I could stop reading it.
For a book where I just went into the whole plot of the novel, not much happens in it. Like, it's just Leah hanging out in a hospital, falling in love with Ethan when they meet maybe 2 times, and that's about it. And Ethan is one of the Amish people. And
yeah, so Rebecca's in there and her older sister and brother are like visiting her more often than other members of her family, for I don't know if the reasons were explained.
There's a baby at home. And the dad has to take care of the livestock, and he is more reliable for running the household. And then the mom has an 8-month-old child who she cannot leave because he is, yeah.
Hannah, you said that in book 2, Leah gets visited by Gabriella and Rebecca. Does that mean Rebecca dies in book 2?
Oh, we're gonna get into that. We can do like we're gonna do a little bit of a breakdown of like book 1, because again, not much happens. I'm so sorry. I thought more plot happened in this book when I was a child, but it doesn't.
Can I go back very to the beginning? Like, how did she break her finger? Because I don't remember this like the actual break happening, and then they just kept mentioning it at some point, and I was just like, I don't remember the finger being broken or the hand or whatever it was at all.
They kind of say, like, it's weird that your finger broke when you didn't do anything to injure yourself.
She's driving home and all of a sudden it starts hurting and it's broken. And it's because she has very bad bone cancer is the reason.
So like literally just like almost like a sci-fi novel, just like breaking.
And
well, I think that
it happens before the book actually starts.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's
kind of happens. Yeah, it happens off page. A huge part of Lurlene McDaniel's novels are like young girls. In my mind, it's supposed to be like, well, if you're sick, here's how to go into a hospital setting. But also for like young sheltered girls who read these books, it kind of just teaches you that you think you are always about to be diagnosed with the terminally ill disease, to the point where as a child, I thought I was going to die before age 21. Like, I was convinced because I read a whole bunch of these books and I was like, yeah, you die before you become of age. Obviously, like, that's just what happens. You get diagnosed with cancer and you die. And so that's just like, it's meant to be dramatic.
That's some terrible health anxiety that some children are growing up with.
But yeah, she hurt her finger. It turned out to be very bad bone cancer, and then it is healed by an angel by the end of the novel, which is why on Goodreads people were like, Lurlene, no one even died. It's because usually Leo was supposed to die from the cancer and instead got healed by angels, and that's not what the Lurlene McDaniel's girlies are there for. So
I also wanted to bring up that you mentioned that they diagnosed her with cancer. This doesn't happen until quite a ways into the book, I feel like. And the way that they're just instantly like, we have to cut off the limbs. Like, we have to cut off your leg. And she just kind of like doesn't think like, oh, we need a second opinion. I'm like,
I like this doctor. I'm going to trust him with my limb.
You need a second opinion immediately before they cut your leg off.
And I will say, like, this book was very weird because Leah's mom is objectively like kind of awful. Like, she just comes in screaming at doctors in like denial and just makes everything worse.
I feel like reading this book, her mom got a really bad rap. Like
It's
every
because
time she's
supposed to
like,
be awful.
but is she though?
No.
Laura
She
just said
explains
like
that
they need a
she's not
second
that-
opinion, and that's what the mom is shouting about.
Yeah.
Don't cut my daughter's leg off before getting a second opinion.
She also explains too, like the mom does, like, yeah, I know that you haven't had the best life and everything because I've been married all these times, but literally a lot of this was like me trying to survive and get us through this. So like I did marry people with money at times because I needed us to get through. And it's like, okay, well, that's understandable.
That is fair. I think I'm forgetting because throughout the rest of the series, she always treats like Leah always treats her mom like her mother cannot handle herself. But it seems like the mom just had a really bad hand that was dealt to her. And she's like, I did my best. I don't know what else you want from me. But she is also treated like she's hysterical at every turn, where she'll like come in and she'll be like, I need a second opinion. And everyone's like, well, she's being really hysterical. And it's like, well, is she, or is she just a normal woman with a daughter? Like,
But
Also-
I mean,
Go
she
ahead.
is described as like screaming at the doctor, and I feel like even if wanting a second opinion is a very understandable reaction and being distressed by what's happening is very understandable, I do feel that you shouldn't be screaming at your doctor as the first thing you do.
I do think there's definitely like a strong feeling that I get from this book that we're getting all of this through the child's perspective.
100%.
So I know a lot of it. I am trying. Well, the audiobooks don't do this.
But the audiobooks are terrible
because they do make the mom seem hysterical. But I definitely think that it's like a lot of the child's perspective where like you can say something and be like, hey, don't do that. And a kid could be like, why are you screaming at me? And it's like, I didn't scream at you. I just said, hey, don't do that. And so I do think there's a lot of that in this where Leah is kind of like, well, so-and-so was bad. And it's like, okay, well, were they? I don't know.
I agree with that completely. Like, I definitely think all of the narration was so mean to the mom.
Yes.
Well, we do find out, like, even in later books, I will go into it, but like the mom just gets a bad rap where like she hates her mom about like keeping her father away from her and like keeping a grandmother away from her. But there are hints where it's like, hey, there's more to the story that you don't seem to be picking up on, and people are hinting at you like really loudly. But Leah seems to be kind of stuck in her own little world and just like going off and being like, I'm kind of pretty and I'm pretty popular and now I'm sick and I might die. And it's just very strange.
It also frustrates me too if it becomes a thing where the stepdad Neil becomes kind of a hero character and the mom continues to be treated like a villain because I hate that sexism that occurs.
There is a different, like, oh God, these books are so, I've read quite a few of these, and I do believe like it falls into the moms be hysterical and mean trope when like young girls are just being so innocent and pure, but like also have boyfriends sleeping over at the house. And there is a treatment in the 90s where it's like, well, as long as we didn't have sex, it was fine. And it's like, well, you also didn't ask for permission or do things like children are supposed to do. You just kind of acted like you were an adult and your parents got mad and that seemed okay. Like, but I will say I made fun of this. I also appreciated these books as someone who grew up as a girly girl. I felt like I didn't get a ton of books where like a girly girl was often nice. Like wanting to do your makeup and put on perfume was usually treated as kind of like you were a ridiculous human being when I was growing up in a lot of the books I read, where it's like, if you care what you look like, you're awful to other people and you're mean to them and you bully them. I did like that Leah seems to like those things about herself and wants to do those things, and she's still a very nice person who like makes nice connections with people even if she's a little mean to her mom. I did appreciate that in these books.
I think I totally glossed over that. I like did not even make that connection at all. I just thought it was like, oh, she's like befriending this family because it's a little girl and they're in the same room and brother hot.
Brother is hot. Lurlene McDaniel has actually gone on the record that she does not give a shit about romances in her novels, which is so funny because so many of them are built on the romances. Like young girls read these for like, I want him to be my boyfriend. He's so great. And she's like, yeah, I kind of find romance boring I don't find it necessary to the plot. So I just make these girls perfect boyfriends that couldn't exist anywhere, so that they never have any problems and I don't have to write about it. And I'm like, that's so, but then why write about it at all?
I mean, well, I think that's very valid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to the book, actually.
Yeah, it does.
If you did not care about the romance, you would write the most boring romance of all time, where she's every now and then questioning this family about their traditions and their values, and then just being like, but I wish I could get a kiss on the lips from him. And then she does, and then they never probably see each other again.
Oh no, they see each other a whole bunch again.
I know we do, but I'm just saying, if we end at this book like I was hoping to, then it's just the kiss on the lips and he disappears.
I do think I aged up what age group this was for, because this was obviously what I was reading. I was like, oh no, this was for 12-year-olds. Like the time I read this was very specific in my life. It's very innocent. It's very like blink and you'll miss it. And I was like, oh, it makes sense. I only read 5 because I think I hit high school and I was like, oh no, there are better books out there. Like I don't need to read these ones. But
I can definitely see this as like a book that I probably myself would have gotten sucked into the boyfriend of it all and been like, I can't believe that they are maybe going to kiss when it's forbidden.
When he's Amish.
He took another girl on a horse-drawn buggy ride. What? Yeah, I can see 11 or 12-year-old Laura being like, scandalous.
Yeah, this is pretty scandalous. Yeah, but I do appreciate that Lurlene McDaniel has gone on the record like, I gave her a perfect boyfriend and she was dying. Like, what else do you want from me? We don't. I feel like there's nothing that happens in these books, so we're gonna have a hard time discussing them.
I will say it's definitely trauma porn. Absolute trauma porn. Like absolute. I hate that about things. I hate inspiration porn. I hate trauma porn. I'm someone who grew up in a lot of hospital situations, and I had a sibling who was in the hospital a lot, so I was very involved in this kind of stuff, and I have grown up to be an adult who hates trauma porn and hates inspiration porn because it's just sickening to me. But this was definitely one of those books where I'm just like, okay, we get it.
I apologize.
The hospital is fun and full of Christmas decorations. It's a great place to be, and how inspirational are they?
Except it's not a great place to be because someone stole their Christmas tree.
Yeah.
So and bad things happen in the hospital too.
Yeah.
So in this book, someone stole the Christmas tree and then they bring them a full live Christmas tree for the children's ward.
My
first question was like, don't they have to get like that approved? Like, if you're going to bring a live tree in, like, you're going to have issues.
Absolutely.
And this is a very specific facility that like does treat people with cancer who like can't be exposed to certain things. But it's just like, no. The Amish brought it, so of course it is pure.
Yeah.
It's just.
And I very much hated the whole trope that you see in almost every single thing where it's like somebody, mostly like teenagers in the hospital, where they bond over playing video games at the hospital. It's just like, why is everyone doing this? Oh, come on.
Well, because she needed to be sick enough to not be bedridden, where she could walk around with Ethan and go on like quote unquote dates, so his sister didn't cock block them.
I still hated it.
I am also no longer a fan of trauma porn. This was a very specific type of book, but the Molly character in this book, who was the nurse who lost a sibling, also not great, because it didn't teach, like, it's just kind of teaching people that it's like, once you go into a hospital setting, there is a woman there who will befriend you and you two will make a lifelong connection. And it's like, can we not teach people that nurses are friends? Like, they're just there to do a job.
You know what, I totally lied about what my favorite aspect of the book was. My favorite aspect of the book was there was a lot of pushing nursing as a profession, and like Leah wants to become a nurse at one point, and then Molly, the nurse, is like a really positive character in her situation, which I do not like the befriending thing in there. Like, nurses can be kind to their patients, but I don't like the whole like we're friends. That seemed,
you remind me of my dead sister. Like, that seems like a bad boundary.
Yeah, I didn't like that, but I do like. This is my favorite part of the book, actually, that they were very much pro nursing. That nurses like are a noble profession, and I think I missed the part, but they probably meant to say like they need to be paid more, that kind of thing. So
I think that they kind of try to handle it more with the like, yes, please go into nursing, but also recognize like it's not about saving people. It's about like providing health care. And they did kind of try to teach 12-year-old girls who are reading this about that. It is a book in the 90s because I thought it was weird that she didn't think about doctor. She immediately went to nurse. And then I was like, oh.
Which sexist, but still.
One thing I did appreciate about that is that they don't shy away from like the idea that nursing requires schooling and you have to train for it, and like it's not just, you know, you decide you're going to be a nurse and then you're a nurse,
right?
Which I think some books in that time period for that age group kind of like they glossed over the studying bits.
Not important.
We also have the most hilarious moment to me was the end where Gabriella comes and she visits Leah and she's like, please come to this library with me and grab that one book. Or like Leah wakes up and she's like, I have to go grab a specific book, and she grabs it out of the ether and we don't hear what book it is. And I thought it was going to be like the childhood favorite novel of Molly's dead sister. But then Leah gives it to Molly and it is her dead sister's diary, which how did Leah not know that? Like how is it still called a book? Like it's a journal.
Why was that there?
Also, there was a lock on it. She was like, oh, that's normal. Library books have locks on them.
Right.
I was so mad. She kept calling it a book, and then they're like, oh, my sister's journal. I have the key. And I was like, well, A, this child was young, so it's probably easy to break into, and she's not going to want it back. So you can just break into that. It's fine. But be like, why were we still calling it a book? It was obviously a journal. Like,
yeah, that was a strange side plot that was
I think it was
needed.
only there to prove that the angel was magic, and it just was very silly.
But I mean, that was the thing we needed to prove, that the angel was magic, not the instantaneous like, do you want to be cured of your cancer? Boom, you are. You only have to do a little more chemo just to be safe after this.
Which just proves that this isn't for actual like sick people to learn what it's like. No. It's for people who want the trauma of being sick.
Yes.
But want to be miraculously healed at the end. So let's not teach people that it's a glorified experience.
Cancer is fine. You get a boyfriend and you're healed in 10 minutes. Like, no.
Have we hit all the high points?
It's been awful quiet.
I mean, it's a really short book though. Like, it only took an hour for me to read. And granted, I'm a fast reader, but that's generally, for me, I associate that with a book that's like 100 pages or less.
Yeah.
So and as we've said, it's mostly vibes and not plot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not really that much to say about it.
Right.
I actually really enjoyed reading this book. I didn't like the book. But like the experience of reading it was just kind of like, it was so extreme that I was
I'm sorry that I've been such a downer.
No.
Oh, no. I have agreed with everything everyone has said. It was just like funny.
It's like watching a Lifetime movie. Like you watch a Lifetime movie to see a couple of bad wigs and some really out of pocket lines. Like you're not watching to be like, I want to enjoy every single minute of this movie. You're like, no, this is funny.
Yeah. I had a lot of problems with it. I like that poor mom. That poor mom.
I do think that it's definitely ridiculous enough though, Lily, where you're like laughing out loud at some of the things because it's just like, really?
Yeah. On. A lot of my comments are just OMG. I do not understand why, when there are so many Amish girls, I have to care so much in my heart for an English one.
Can we talk about the lack of like any anticipation of their romance, where the first time he meets her, he's like super mean to her. And it's like, let's not teach girls that that's okay. And then he's like, I was only mean to you because I thought you were so beautiful. Instantly, the next time he sees her. And they're pretty much dating afterwards. Like there's no build up. There's no fighting on it. I was just like, oh, there's just like one, he was kind of mean to her and then nothing.
I'll admit, I know nothing about Amish people or anything related to Amish lifestyle. So I was like, do they really call other people like plain people and the English?
I only know what I've picked up from the many, many Amish fiction books, and from those, yes, that is true.
Okay.
Well, and they like speak German and English, so a lot of things are like kind of a mix between things. And Lurlene McDaniel was obviously not interested in a lot of that, other than like their grandparents are named Oma and Opa. So she just, and here's the thing, is it a little bit of like taking someone else's religion and sense of self and turning it into your own little viewing thing for plot purposes? Great. But she didn't do it with people of color, so I'm a little bit better about it, where it's like, listen, Amish people are never going to read this book, and they're probably okay with it. So I did appreciate that if she's going to pick on some, like, or pick up on someone's culture and use it for her own purposes, it was Amish people and not people of color, which she also did. So let's not pretend that didn't happen.
Okay.
So.
Well, that's bad.
But nothing much happens. It was a romp. I would say this is like a very silly, easy book to read and consume.
It's extremely easy to read.
It's very silly and very easy to read. I would agree with both of those statements.
Let's move on into what happens in the next books, because it's just so funny, guys, and I cannot wait to tell you more about it. So in the second book, Leah goes and lives for the summer by herself in an apartment when she's 17. Because again, this girl, parental supervision, never heard of it. Her parents are like going to go gallivanting off, Neil and her mom. Ethan during this time is considering becoming English, but like a lot of the book is taken up to being like, even if I were to wear English clothes, I would never be anything but Amish. I am different from all of you. And very much like the drama of that. Ethan's sister also has a boyfriend, Jonah, who's like on Rumspringa at the time. And Jonah's only main purpose is to get drunk and scream at Leah for being around Amish people and how she's not one of them, even though he is on Rumspringa and in like Americanized clothing and drinking beer and doing all things like American. But he's just like, why won't you leave? And it's because his sister is the person who went on a buggy ride with Ethan that one time, and no one can forget about it. So that happens a couple of times. Judah is hilarious. He always just comes in to scream at Leah. There is no other reason for this man but to like, and then Chastity is like, but I really like him. And it's like, let's not teach girls that they should stay with their abusive boyfriends. He seems kind of abusive. We also find out that Ethan has a brother, Eli, who was very smart, and teachers convinced him to continue with high school education, and then he wanted to go into college. He was never baptized, so he technically wasn't shunned, which is what you need to be shunned in an Amish community. You need to be baptized because then you are deciding to leave the faith. But the dad is so strict that none of them talk about Eli, and they treat him as if he is shunned. And Rebecca doesn't even know he exists. Like, that's how out of the picture their oldest son is. And it's like a very big secret. And Leah has a lot of problems. Like, how could you just leave your son? You know? Molly is going
I mean, rightly so.
Molly is going to publish
Molly's
back. She's going to publish Emily's diary into a book.
Is her diary that interesting?
Well, it felt like
people are reading this book, so a girl dying of cancer maybe would be very interesting.
It felt like she was speaking to them from beyond the grave. I'm like, wasn't she like 11? Like, I'm pretty sure it didn't sound like that. But they think it would help other girls who had cancer go through that process. And Leah goes, it would have helped me if I had a book like that when I had cancer that got miraculously healed a week later.
Lord.
Lurlene McDaniel bungles a line that Ethan says, which is the idea of knee high by the 4th of July means that it's going to be a good harvest. Ethan says, they say it will be a good harvest if the crop is knee high by July 4th. It's not that hard to do the rhyme. Why did she choose to write it that way? I don't know. I was baffled when I heard
I think a lot of the dialogue for the Amish characters is like very much purposely like no contractions, no, like they have to speak in such a way that it's like, okay, no one speaks like this.
They know what a rhyme is.
They don't know that one. And happiness is illegal.
It's just like they
Rhymes are of the devil.
if it is knee high by July 4th. And I'm like, it's so easy to get that rhyme right.
It does seem like though it would even say in the book, it is said that
he also has a moment where he goes shopping with Leah to try out English clothes, and he tells her he would not want to see her in a bikini, but also he gets it that English girls are different than plain girls. So like I'd be upset about it, but like if you wanted to wear a bikini, I guess I had to be okay. She literally goes on a co-ed overnight sleepover with Amish people because that's chill in their community. Okay.
What? He just said, I can't see you in a bikini, but let's go on an overnight co-ed sleepover.
Yeah. And so then we also find out that lots of people do not like English people in the town because they get very dangerous. They just come and look at the plains people like they're a museum, like beings. They take pictures of them. It's rude.
Kind of like this book.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of them drive drunk when they're there because like they have to drive to destinations. All foreshadowing to Rebecca getting hit by a drunk driver.
Whoa.
And going to the hospital immediately where she is quick to die off. During her death, all the Amish people want to give blood, and Leah's like, please let me give blood in honor of your sister. And Ethan is like, this is really about my people. It's not about you. And Leah's like, what? Because it's English blood, it's not good enough for you? That is an actual conflict.
Oh my gosh. Or it could be like, you're not the same blood type and we're siblings, so we might be the same blood type.
No. It was like all of the Amish people were giving blood. And Ethan was like, just don't worry about it, Leah. And Leah's like, what? My blood isn't good enough for you? And it's like, that's probably, this man is, his sister is dying. So maybe you could calm down. But then she tries to give blood and she can't. She literally had cancer in the last book. And she didn't know you couldn't give blood if you had cancer. Also something that happens. And so then Rebecca dies and Leah immediately quits the job at the bed and breakfast she was working at all summer to like be sad and upset about it, and like makes it about her where she's like, if I go to the funeral, will Ethan and Chastity even notice that, or Charity even notice I'm there? And it's like, probably not. Their youngest sister is dead. Like it just becomes very much about Leah. And then Leah sees Rebecca and Gabriella is dressed as an Amish person. And she immediately like and again, in the third book, she's constantly saying like, I don't know if Gabriella was an angel or not. I'm like, you saw her with a dead child in the previous book and you are still having questions about this woman.
She cured your cancer.
And she's like, but I don't know. I don't know, Laura. And so but she goes to tell them all, like, hey, I saw Rebecca and she's okay. She's with Gabriella. They were like, hey, we don't believe in that. We're Amish. And she's like, but Rebecca was waving a handkerchief at me. And Oma, the grandma, is like, oh my gosh, I didn't tell anyone, but I did slip Rebecca's favorite handkerchief into her hands. So it has to be true. And that is pretty much the end of the book.
That seems
so. That's book 2
really out there. And
Book
remember
3,
how you said like you don't mind that she picked this culture? I'm starting to mind because I don't think she did enough research.
There's a lot of weird veneration of the Amish culture too. They're like, they're so pure and of nature, and they all banded together to help each other. But when I found out what food stamps were, I was ashamed of my mother.
Oh,
isn't
very
that the same
Reagan
thing
shame
as the community banding together? Like, how are those things different?
No, it's not. It was very like shamey of people who need food stamps and actual assistance.
Mm-hmm.
It was very strange. There is a weird federation, but also you have like a guy who's on Runspringa screaming at an individual about how like she's too English for them, and it's like, this doesn't pass the vibe check. Like, what's going on here? But also any man who isn't Ethan is also kind of awful and like borderline going to hit a woman at any moment in time, it feels like, because we meet another person in the third book who literally beats up Ethan, and she gets mad that Ethan doesn't defend himself, and he's like, I'm Amish, I'm a pacifist, and she's like, so you're not going to defend me if someone tries to beat me up? And he's like, no, I'm Amish, I'm a pacifist. So So in the third book, Neil immediately gets cancer. She's really upset about it because he didn't tell her. And he's like, there was never a good time. Like, you didn't like me at first, and then you had cancer. And then like you were doing fine, but then like
so he had
didn't...
cancer like at the beginning, like when they went on their trip.
Yeah, he had cancer. It was in remission for the longest time. So he just like didn't tell her because again, she's like 16 and he like it's his stepdaughter. Like his wife knew. Yeah, the wife knew.
Okay.
But they just decided to collectively not tell her because they were like, it seems like none of her business. Like,
and also she's like oddly dramatic about
things, so we're just not gonna tell her. And so he was like, well, first I didn't know you all that well, and then you got cancer, and then like you were supposed to go on summer vacation with us, but then you went to that Amish community, and then that one girl died of a car wreck, and so it just was never the right time. And so he's like quickly dying. A lot of it is how much she loves Neil as a stepdad. Like he like collects antique cars. He has like this giant farm and all this stuff. And so
Leo, that she hated in the first book.
Is Neil mentioned at all in the second book?
Yeah, like he helps drop her off and they have a pretty good relationship where it's always like this is the best husband my mom has ever been with. Like, wow. It's always just like, he's so wonderful.
Love this 180 on Neil.
And like that's the thing is you have to be prepared for him to get cancer in the next book and be sad about it. Leah has a fat friend who, because she is fat, isn't popular, but like loves the star football player who later she like gets over him because he's a huge dick. The star football player asks Leah to a dance. She tells him no. She turns him down a second time. He begins to be a total asshole to her to the point where at one point he beats Ethan up and then gets in trouble because a coach catches him, because obviously coaches are not going to sweep that under the rug and they're not part of the problem and part of
so Ethan is interacting with
so
in her high school.
So yes, in this book, after Neil becomes sick, she gets so upset that she goes to visit Ethan on her Christmas break. And during this time, she finds out that Ethan is now only living at home during the week. On the weekends, he is going to Jonah, the alcoholic Amish boy from book 2's apartment to live with him. They go to another party. He again is super drunk and is like, and he is no longer with Charity because Charity's like, hey, dude, you need to stop being on Rumspringa and like become Amish again to marry me, or else I'm not going to be with you. And he's like, she just doesn't think for herself. And it's supposed to be like, isn't Charity so wonderful because she's like a bastion of goodness and he's just a terrible alcoholic, which is fine. Because again, you should leave your abusive boyfriend who screams at people when he's drunk. But so Ethan, while they're there, says he wants to go meet his brother Eli. He moves in with Leah and her parents after Christmas break.
Not Eli? Not the older brother?
Well, because he hasn't found him yet. So like it's a whole mystery of how to find him. So he moves into their basement because again, they live on a mansion of a farmhouse.
And his parents are okay with that.
So his dad is like, you know what? You're under Rumspringa. So like either you're going to come back or not, but like I can't do anything to stop you. This feels like something you have to do. Even though the dad like shunned Eli in previous, it's supposed to show that the dad has grown. And so Ethan then moves. He starts working at a veterinary clinic. He and Leah do get in trouble again for her not telling her mom that he's staying the night when they're alone in the farmhouse. And they do that for 2 nights, and they have to sleep in the living room together because the electricity is off the first night, and then the second night they just accidentally fall asleep there because that's where they were sleeping before. Ethan literally tells Leah about times where Amish people will sometimes get naked and sleep next to each other before marriage to stay warm, or, you know, to see if they're like viable options for each other. Sometimes they're naked, sometimes they're not. And she's like, what happens if they end up having sex? And he's like, well, in the case of babies, they have to ask the entire congregation for forgiveness and then they get married. And she's like, that seems embarrassing. And he's like, yeah, it is, but they have to do it because God. That is a conversation that happens. It was very weird. I was scanning the pages and I was like, is this actually happening? I'm not going back to find out. I just dove straight ahead. So he like starts living with her. He gets beat up by that guy at a random festival. Neil is trying to do different medication. Ethan is helping. Ethan is like a godsend to all of them because of course he is. He's the perfect boyfriend that Lurlene McDaniel does not give 2 shits about. Neil ends up getting sick again. And he dies very quickly, and she calls him dad. During this time, Neil has one of the most inappropriate conversations I've ever seen a stepdad have with a daughter, where he tells her intimate details about her father's own mental health struggles and her mom having to divorce the dad and her mom's relationship with the grandmother. Does not let this come from her mother, tells her everything and says, your mom doesn't want you to know, but I think you're ready. Not appropriate.
Oh my gosh.
We find out throughout the book, throughout these books, she always like holds a grudge against her mom for keeping her dad away from her and keeping her grandmother. You find out in the third book that her dad was in Vietnam. Like that was mentioned in the first book. So it was like, oh, the dad went through some shit. Like it was just like passing glance and you missed it.
And the first book, I mean, she does have a conversation with her mother where her mom is like, yeah, he was going through some stuff. He left and he died and we don't really know stuff. And I shouldn't have kept your grandmother from you. So like
you find out in the third book that he was paranoid, which I think is verbiage for, it sounds like he was actually schizophrenic, just from the details of the paranoia, where he thought people were out to get him. He thought like people were about to attack him at all times. And for the mother's own safety, she divorced him. But when she divorced him, he ran out on them with a bunch of medical bills and she was going to struggle. And his mother blamed Leah's mom for leaving her son during his time of need and threatened a custody battle over Leah because the mom was drowning in debt and due to her son's own actions. And she blamed Leah's mom. So like that's the whole backstory where Leah's mom was like, yeah, I kept her away from you because she literally like threatened to take you from me. And I felt I had a right. And then, yeah, I did have a hard time forgiving her. But once she got sick, her son was dead. There was nothing else I could do. I tried to make sure you guys had a relationship. So it's like, oh yeah, Leah's mom was justified, but also like afterwards, Leah has this conversation with Neil, not her mom.
Ooh,
and then
how is that spun as her mom's fault?
Yeah, like, well, it was just like, it doesn't get dealt with where Leah, well, Leah does have like why am I not told about these things? It feels like everyone's out to get me. And her mom was just like, dude, you're a kid. And so then it like, they just have a conversation where her mom is like, yeah, sorry, I never told you. I heard Neil told you. And I was like, that's not what would happen. Like if you, and then, yeah, Neil dies and she calls him daddy before he dies because this is a book about stepdaughters and fathers. And then after he dies, during this time, they also do meet Eli. He is with a Mennonite woman who is a less strict version of Amish, but he will not come talk to their dad again because he hates the fact that he grew up as Amish. He hates the fact that he has to unlearn a bunch of stuff. So it's like, I hate the fact that I have religious trauma. And then Ethan is always like, but like dad's changed. So like, could you maybe? And Eli's like, no, I can't. I don't believe that. I had a ton of like, I suffer every time I'm trying to like exist in the real world. And Ethan's like, but you found a Mennonite woman. So it's not like you're not like, you're kind of Amish. And it's a very weird conversation where they leave it as like, Eli's like, bro, I'm not coming home. I will write to you. That is all that will happen. And so during that right after that happens, pretty much Neil dies. He has a rule in his will that all of the cars will be sold and all the money and the proceeds from his antique cars will go into a trust for Leah. And as she is about to go tell Ethan about this, he says, I'll meet you outside. And he comes out and he is dressed as Amish and he decides to go back to his life being Amish. And that means they can no longer be together. So they have to say goodbye to one another. He says he will always love her. And she decides not to tell him about the money because he is Amish, she literally doesn't care about money anymore. and that is pretty much how the series ends, with them not ending up together, which I think is why this book was very dramatic to a lot of young girl readers, because you read all about their love and then they decide they cannot be together at the end, which
it's very dramatic because it has 10,000 dramatic things happening. It's extremely overcomplicated.
So that is a quick rundown of all of those things.
Yeah, the whole time I'm listening to this, I'm just like, there's too many things happening.
It's very quick. And like also not enough happening because there's like months of Ethan just living with her and they'll be like, yeah, sometimes they make dinner together and sometimes they just hang out. And then one day they go to so there's weird bouts of time where this last book starts in December and ends in like March or April. And like Leah's decided, and it'll get dropped plotline. Leah never goes back to maybe I want to be a nurse. Never talks about it again. Like it's just fully off the page.
Well, that stinks because that was my favorite part.
Yeah,
but what is the total length of time we are looking at from the beginning of the first book to the end of the third book?
About a year and 4 months.
Okay, because I was Googling, Rumspringa is usually only 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really feel like Lurlene McDaniel is not doing enough research, because like I'm just doing some quick Google searches and it's just like Mennonite and Amish are different.
Right. I mean, it was not Google in the 90s, but
yeah, like the research was different. And a lot of people like Mennonite and Amish are very different. They do kind of say that in the book. I glossed over it for comedic effect because like I'm not going to get into the details of them being like, oh, because they're Mennonite, they get to live in the real world. But also like because of that, his Amish upbringing is like pretty painful for Eli, it sounds like. And he's like, I don't want to go back to that. And it just seems like the entire book treats him as if he is a selfish asshole for putting up a boundary and being like, you know, I was kicked out of our family. I think I'm okay with that now.
I'm honestly just thinking there's just too much going on with all these books. And I again did another quick Google search. I'm on Lurlene McDaniel's Wikipedia page, and it literally in the first paragraph here says that she's well known for writing about young adults struggling with mortality and chronic illness, a career that began as a therapeutic way to deal with the trauma when her son, then 3, was diagnosed with juvenile diabetes. So
diabetes?
Yes.
I feel like it's a pretty big jump from diabetes to writing about girls going through cancer and dying.
And I just like my mind is blown that this is what became of all of that. Like, oh my gosh.
So I have one question about a plot point that doesn't seem to have reoccurred. What happens with the publication of the diary?
Oh, we never find out. That is just like she's gonna try to do it. We do not have.
It's a major motion picture.
I got upset because I do not remember if this ever happened, but I was like, why don't we have like, because certain books, like, again, I read a lot of books like this, like 90s books that are quick, blink and you're missed. They're pretty formulaic. I was just talking about this with my partner where I was like, yeah, I stopped reading Nicholas Sparks after I read like 2 of his books because I realized like they're so formulaic. You can guess what's happening within chapter 2. And so I do think that this was a brand of book that was pretty popular in the late 90s, early 2000s, where it's like, oh, they're pretty formulaic, but it's because like authors can release them super quickly. So they're like pretty digestible. And I do think that that's a very Lurlene McDaniel's brand. But what upset me is I was like, why don't we have an Emily story that's like a connected in universe? Because like that could have happened with a lot of other stories. Because like Nicholas Sparks did that. Jodi Picoult did that. Sarah Dessen did that, where everything happened in the same universe. And I was like, I don't think she ever connected that. You should have written an Emily story. We should have gotten that would have been a
better way to go.
Yeah. It was just very strange to be like, yeah, we're going to publish that book. And then it's just like, remember Molly? I don't.
I just think too much is going on. I'm just going to keep saying that they're overly complicated. And I'm glad I didn't read the second 2 because it sounds like maybe certain things are focused on and other things are kind of glossed over in these books, which is a choice.
It wants to very much say like, I love Amish people, but I'm also going to microaggress them every other page.
Kind of, yeah. Which I will say, I do think that we as plain people have a weird...
We're English, Laura.
Yeah, I'm sorry. They're the plain people.
Yeah, they're the plain people.
Okay, I'm sorry. We as English have a weird obsession with the Amish in general because like there are literal towns that we just go into to watch them and we take pictures of them and obsess over things that they make and stuff like that. So that is cringy that occurs. And
wasn't there a reality show about Rumspringa at one point?
Oh yeah, and there's all sorts of TikTok people now that are formerly of the Amish community that are talking about their experience and everything. They have millions of followers because people are just obsessed with knowing about this experience. And I know, like, even my own parents, like, they have gone to like communities of Amish people and like gone through and like, oh my gosh, we got to go through here and see all this stuff that they made and everything, and we got this or that. And it's like, this seems odd to me that we're like kind of making this a tourist attraction.
I feel like that's a very much not West Coast experience.
Yeah, you guys probably do not.
Like
in Indiana and Iowa, and also I believe Michigan, there are still some Amish communities.
Illinois
and Ohio too.
Yeah.
Illinois, I think, has Mennonite communities.
There are a couple I feel like have Amish communities where I know my mom specifically bought vanilla from Amish people because she was like, they make better vanilla. And that was kind of, but like, it wasn't like a go and take pictures. It was like, let's go to the grocery store and pick up the things that we know. They know what they're doing, and like mass quantities of things don't know what they're doing. But maybe I'm mistaken and it was a Mennonite community.
I'm only aware of some Mennonite communities. Actually, no, I lied. There is one down in central Illinois.
Yeah, that's the one
that I believe, and they have like a sale barn as well. But yeah, it's very much a thing in the Midwest to kind of like, it sounds terrible and creepy to say this, but it's just like a tourist attraction, almost like going to a zoo, practically, where you look at these people going about their day-to-day lives and take pictures, and people want to get the goods that they make, and they value their furniture and all these other things that they produce because they're quote unquote of better quality, this or that.
I do think that handmade furniture by people who know what they're doing is a lot nicer.
Right.
So I can kind of give that a pass because
I'm not knocking their goods, I guess. I'm knocking the touristy, the
fetishization of it.
So the fetishes. Yes.
That is definitely odd. And I would have loved this book or this series to explore that.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I mean, just based on the first book and what you have described of books 2 and 3, it does not do that at all.
It does treat it like
she's on the edge of it, though.
She keeps like almost hitting it where like there could be an interesting discussion, but then it's like put in layers of like abusive boyfriend that it's like, because like it is interesting because at the end of the book you do meet the girl who went on a buggy ride with Ethan, and she's kind of sitting there and she's like, hey, you're leaving this year, like for you this is just a stop along, but like for me this is our entire life and culture, so like I'm going to still be here and you're going to be there. So like you guys probably will not last. And Leah takes this as if that is the bitchiest comment you could say, where I'm like, no, if we weren't in your POV, like the Amish girl is right. Like you are treating this as like he's going to leave his culture for you, or you guys, your love will overcome all. And like, no, this is a different standard of thing. You're not going to get what you want out of this.
Was it ever even suggested that maybe she become Amish to stay with him? Okay.
No, it's never discussed. It's just her learning about like, isn't it so great that the Amish people love Jesus? And it's like, yes, it seems like it works really well for them. But it's always her asking like really insensitive questions throughout the entire series. And it just doesn't hit right when you're rereading these in 2023.
I also think even just the whole like, isn't it great that they love Jesus thing also seems weird, and like we're watching these people through a binoculars type of thing that I am like, I don't like this.
Yeah, I think this book plays into the fetishization of that entire culture and doesn't like explore any of, I mean, you say that it kind of could almost, but it doesn't quite get there.
No, it does. And that's like, I do appreciate this book didn't end with Ethan staying with her. Like, I do think that was a good choice. It's probably the only good choice when it came to the Amish people in this book, where it's like, he's like, yeah, I decided that my culture and my life is happy. And she like has a moment where she's like, aren't I good enough? And he's just kind of like, no, like, this is my family. This is my life. This is my culture. I want to go back. I am not the same as my brother. I don't like that he had those feelings. And it's like, yeah, you could not agree with him, but also at the end of the day, this is his choice and he chose to go home. Like,
how do you think like the handling of like some of the relationship dynamics was done? Like you've mentioned that it's almost like there was an abusive boyfriend situation. Do you think that that was another situation where the author was kind of like right on the edge of it and could have delved into it a little bit and just like, no?
It does a really poor job, in my opinion, of some things, because like it almost treats it like, don't worry, Jonah's a good guy, even though he's like screaming at other people and there are all these warning signs. And Leah kind of has an attitude of like, well, if that's what Charity wants, it's fine. And like she'll sometimes mention to Charity, like, well, he seems to be a little bit mean, but like she'll never go over that line. And so it's very weird where I was like, no, I feel like we should be teaching teenagers to be like, are you safe? I feel like you're not safe. Would your friends and family be upset if they knew the way he like treated others? Like it just seems very much where they were like, oh, he's out sowing his wild oats. They do treat the abusive football player who like his friends literally at one point during the fight scene where the fight starts with him slapping Ethan open palm, which made me laugh. Like you have a football player in high school being like slap. And I was like, oh, okay. I guess that's how the fight starts. But one of his friends is literally holding Leah back and like his arms around her. And I'm like, oh, this is about to get like very scary and upsetting. But then like a coach intervenes. And again, it gets to the point where like Leah's like, we were both in danger. Like I was trying to fight. Why weren't you? And he's just like, well, I'm Amish. Like I'm a pacifist and that's how I see things. And like, it's kind of seen critically where like, it's like, well, obviously the football player's in the wrong for doing it. But like Leah, there's no conversation after the fact. Leah's just like, well, he's Amish, so he's just not going to protect me. And it's like, well, yeah, it sounds like it. So are you willing to be with someone who does that instead of just like judging it? And it just feels very bizarre. I will say that the for lack of a better term, because I honestly can't remember her name. Oh, her name is Shelly. Shelly is the fat friend. She has a huge crush on the football player. And after he treats Leah meanly, she immediately like does a 180 and it's like, no, I don't like him anymore. So they do treat that guy like he has some comeuppance. But the other guy, they just kind of treat like, well, eventually he'll come back to the Amish community. And when he does, everything will be okay. And it's like, it kind of sounds like it won't. Like,
I think maybe Lurlene McDaniel could have done a little more.
Yeah. I mean, this is...
She said her Wikipedia page says she studies the Bible to infuse... What was it? To infuse a human element, battle the coldness of technology or something.
I saw that as well. And
books. Yep.
I'm confused by it. I don't know what that means. I'm confused. Yeah,
it's a very bizarre. I mean, I definitely wanted us all to read this, but like because it has a good discussion of like the media that you can consume, like this is very different than a lot of the books that we all like love and hold dear. I don't hold these books dear in my heart anymore. But they were a specific brand of media that was often consumed by girls where it was like, hey, be scared of death, be like, only want boyfriends. And once you have that, you'll be happy. And it's just like, I'm so glad there's other media out there. And this is just a very bizarre thing. I do enjoy the fact that she says she doesn't give a shit about these romances because they're all over every single book.
Yeah, but they're not well thought out. So I do think she doesn't care about them.
Well, but like part of that makes me wonder is like, it's a weird thing where it's like, well, this book was originally published in 1996. And I do think in 1996, there was a different view of like men and female relationships where it was like, well, as long as he's not hitting you, then it can't be abusive. And it's like, well, yes, it can. Like, but we didn't teach people about that. And that sucks, you know?
Yeah, I definitely think these books feel like they were written in or published in 1996 and have relationship dynamics that were much more prevalent in fiction in 1996. And we have kind of evolved beyond some of that. And I'm glad that a lot of fiction these days that's aimed at young adults doesn't portray relationships in that same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I definitely see the appeal for young people reading this, where it's like, no one appreciates you, your mom sucks and you have a crappy stepdad in the first book.
But he's
but
the best.
What happens? What if something happens to you and then they'll be sorry? Like, I feel like
that's kind of what it is.
Yeah. Like, yeah.
And that's totally appealing to a young, like, I can see that. I get that.
I will say her last book was written in like 2010, so she has not been like writing since a very specific time period. And I wonder if it's because like these are not what young people want to read nowadays.
I mean, she's also very old. She's in her 80s now, so she might just be like, I'm tired of writing about this. I'm over the juvenile diabetes of it all. My son is in his 60s.
He's fine. He just had diabetes.
My therapeutic writing worked.
I mean, she's only
I'm
79.
cured. It's a miracle.
I will say that she did write an adult novel at one point. I remember reading an article. I don't know which one it is. There's too many books out there by her, but she did read write an adult one, which I think is a weird choice to do later on, where it's like, you seem to have a specific market.
But
yeah, I feel like she might have a niche.
Presumably, all of the young girls who read her books grew up to be adults, unless they had incurable cancer. So maybe she was seeing if there would be like follow through, if she could bring her audience with her.
Oh my gosh, she has one written where like two 18-year-olds get married because they're about to die. That is a book. Like, it's called Till Death Do Us Part, and there's a sequel for Better, for Worst, Forever. Like, this is sort of like, I just like talking about these because they sound so awful. Saving Jessica, I'll Be Seeing You.
I'm looking at the list
right behind.
Yeah, The Girl Death Left Behind.
I remember
Time to Let Go.
There's A Horse for Mandy. I kind of remember that one because, again, Laura and I were horse girls. I don't think I read it, but I think I used to look at I remember these books being on my sister's bookshelves, and like that was one I would like pick up and look at and be like, I'm too young, and put it back. But I remember that there was one where like a girl has her entire family die in a car accident and she has to survive on.
Hit and Run?
It might be. I could not tell you. Let me look at
It focuses on 4 teenagers whose lives intersect following a hit and run car crash.
No, it's definitely not that one. But yeah, these books were just like sad girl, like for people who didn't have problems.
She died too young.
She died too young. So I think that they have a specific brand where it's like, yeah, I get it if you're a dramatic girl who's going through puberty. There are some times where like you just want to read about drama and like make it about like, oh my gosh, this could happen to me. But like, I'm glad that those books don't get written as much anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I can see the appeal. I don't think it's maybe the healthiest way of dealing with it.
No.
Yeah, just that, like, maybe if I was dying of cancer, the boy in my math class would notice me. Like,
kind of, yeah.
Maybe that Amish boy would leave his family and religion behind and be with me. And it's just like, I guess I did laugh genuinely when I was reading the final of the book. And she was like, I guess I won't tell him about the trust fund. He doesn't care about money. It's like, it's not the worst thing that happened today. Like,
oh my gosh.
So guys, do you think you will continue reading Lurlene McDaniel's after this point?
I mean, that's a hard no from me, but I'm sure I'll be looking forward to the next episode of Fiction Fans where they cover.
Yeah, we're planning on covering books 2 and 3 on the podcast in great detail. I'm glad to have read this. Probably. I'm not sure that I will read more of Lurlene McDaniel, but it was certainly a book.
I had a good time.
I did. I'm never going to read more of it. No, that's not where that was going. But I'm not going to hedge around it. Like, this book was so ridiculous. I had a great time.
It's got to be better than the last Christmas book we made you guys read, which was the Heartland book.
I don't know. At least the Heartland books had horses.
So I mean, that is fair.
I'm just going to say I greatly prefer the Heartland book.
Yeah.
If you're coming at it from like, what book would I prefer a young person to read? Probably Heartland would win that. But if you're like, hey, Lily, which one were you like actually actively laughing the whole time? that was this one.
Perfect. Then that's great. And guys, this is, in fact, just for our listeners, this is a Christmas book. There is Christmas trees. There is apparently, Laura and I both glanced over this, but you guys did not. A horrifying rabbit head doorway.
But I don't think the rabbit door is a Christmas thing. I think it's just an all year,
like the kids ward thing.
I think it's just the kids ward. There was a weird moment where a lot of this book was teaching you about what a hospital looked like, which again, like if the goal was to teach children about like, hey, this is what a hospital visit might look like, I think it would be better. I don't think it was going for that. I think it was like, imagine you are in a hospital. It's like, well, let's not teach prepubescent children about that. Like, they're fine. They'll be okay.
My favorite part was when they were putting the Christmas tree up. Everyone is happy. They're decorating. They're singing songs. And Leo's like, well, the Amish have taught me what Christmas is really about. And those angels are fake. And they're all doing it wrong.
Angels don't look like that.
The angel now looks waxy and fake. It was just a doll, bearing little resemblance to the heavenly creature it was supposed to represent.
I did actually like that they talked about how angels are kind of horrific looking and have lots of wings and lots of eyes.
Yeah.
Like that was not something I was expecting from this book. A little
that
bit
kind of gets into
historical
more of,
accuracy. Biblical accuracy.
Biblical accuracy. Yeah. I
kind of gets into some of like the questioning of things and the like, oh, well, this is actually something that is not a tradition, or this is not something
but also keep your Christianity out of my Christmas party.
Yeah, when she's like, can't you guys just pretend to enjoy it? Like, I get it that you guys actually care about like the Christian Christmas, but this is just for fun. Come on. I also love the one thing I will close out on is the most hilarious discussion was Gabriella as a pervert who was wandering the halls of the hospital trying to get her rocks off on dying children.
So she mentions it to Molly, the nurse, her BFF, who definitely needs to watch what she's doing here. Mm-hmm. But she mentions it to her like, oh yeah, Gabriella came and took care of things, and Molly's immediately like, Gabriella, who is that? Which goes on this whole like departure on, is there possibly a pervert walking around in a children's hospital claiming to be a nurse because no one checked her credentials?
I also, I will say, sorry, not to bring us back into this, we were wrapping up, but I hated that like you found out that that was wrong and she was really an angel, because I was like, let's not teach children that random people showing up in your room in a hospital are angels, because that's going to send the wrong message to the children. Let's teach them that like, no, do not trust those people. Come on.
Absolutely question that.
That part too, because Gabriella's dialogue is something like, well, I never said I was a nurse. I can't help it if you assumed. And I'm like, what was she gonna think? Don't blame Leah for making a reasonable assumption.
Right.
You're there at night. No one else is supposed to be. Gabriella,
an adult in your room at night, you're going to assume that's a nurse.
But don't worry, because she took Rebecca home. We do not see Gabriella in the third book. Gabriella does not show up for a third time, and Leah is all sorts of upset about it, where she's like, but Neil is dying. Yeah, Gabriella come, and it's like, no, I think she was only there for Rebecca. I think you were just kind of ancillary, and she was like, I guess I'll cure your cancer today. All right. Does anyone else have any final thoughts about these books? I will not be reading any more Lurlene McDaniels. I cannot believe I read all three of these in a week.
I was very impressed when you said you had read all three.
The third one, it's a loose definition of reading. I was like scanning the page and being like, is anything important happening? And even like the brothers, like the brotherly meeting, I was like, oh, I should focus in on this. And I was like, I physically can't. Like, I need to skim. But yeah, I read all three. So the audiobooks were not very good. But they do have audiobooks options on Hoopla where they give audiobook and e-reading to help the what was it called? The shy reader, and also it's so they're teaching people how to read, so that is nice, but not with these books. Pick different books, guys. All right, with that said, Lily, I'm going to start with you. What's something you're reading, watching, and or enjoying right now?
Well, we're kind of in a time travel situation, right? Because we're recording right before Halloween, but I know this is coming out right before Christmas. So sorry everyone. But the answer was Sara made me watch Slaughterhouse.
Oh, I don't know what that is. What is that?
A sloth mass murders
slasher.
a bunch of sorority girls. Yeah.
I've seen clips of this and it looks hilarious because there's like the 3 little toes come out and then it's like
I would say the last half of it was very fun, like very like great B horror. The first half was really slow. It tried to hit that like absurd level, that Sharknado absurd, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it quite got there. And the fact that a sloth murdering sorority girls was not silly enough, I think says something.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for like a lighthearted horror movie for, I guess, Christmas now,
why not? Come on.
Yeah.
Sarah, what's something you're reading, watching, and or enjoying?
Let's see. We just read for the podcast Even Though I Knew the End, which also, nope, I can't say that. It's a spoiler.
Yeah.
But it's very good. It did not win the Hugo Award for Best Novella. It was nominated, and Hugo Awards just were announced today. But it's excellent, and I really enjoyed it.
This looks good. Magical detective dives into the affairs of Chicago's divine monsters to secure a future with the love of her life. Ooh, I'm gonna need to pick that one up.
Yeah, and
who's the author?
C.L. Polk.
Okay.
And it's a novella. It's short. You can read it in an evening. It'll take maybe 15 minutes longer than reading Angels Watching Over Me, but you'll like it a lot more.
Oh, I don't know about that, Sarah.
I know it's a high bar. It has to jump over to hit that.
Laura, what is something you are reading, watching, and or enjoying?
So I read a novella as well, The Only Living Girl on Earth by Charles Yu, who also wrote Interior Chinatown, one of my absolute favorite books. And this is just a novella that's kind of, it wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be, but it's basically what happens to the Earth after we all leave it because we've destroyed it, and Earth becomes basically a gift shop that people travel to and get little things. And so we are following one of the gift shop workers. It's cool. Hannah, what have you been reading and watching?
I'm trying to think of anything. I read Lumberjanes, which Laura recommended to be on the 12 Friends for 12. On the scheme of things girls should read, this one definitely goes over Lurlene McDaniel.
Yes.
It is a graphic novel by Grace Ellis, N.D. Stevenson, and Shannon Waters about a group of girls who are at a camp for Lumberjanes, and there's a lot of spooky shit going on with them, pretty much. Mysteries keep happening. They suddenly, there will be random statues that start talking. There are random boys who are taken over by monsters that make them chase them, and they're very scared of them. It's a romp. It's a ton of fun. And there's also 2 girls falling in love and getting crushes on each other. And it's adorable every time it happens. And I read the first 4 volumes, and it's a delight. And everyone should read that instead of Lurlene McDaniel's. I'm so sorry to my younger self. I wish you had had Lumberjanes.
I know. Lumberjanes are so good. Like, friendship to the max. They are the best.
I love how much they gaslight their bunk mom or the high schooler who's supposed to be taking care of them. Amazing. It's hilarious. She's always like, "Where were you guys?" And they're like, "We were here the whole time." And she's like, "No, you weren't. You obviously weren't." Like,
she has such anxiety.
I wonder why. Take care of you. Yeah, all these girls just go off on night romps. So yeah, I was enjoying that a ton. But thank you guys so much for coming on. We appreciate all of these nostalgia book clubs. Sarah, I'm going to say on the podcast again, I'm so sorry because I had picked a much better book and then it was holiday season, so we had to do this one.
You promised me Just Ella or Ella Enchanted, one of the two.
It was Just Ella.
And then you tore that rug out from under me, made me read Lurlene McDaniel.
But
that's okay.
Honestly,
I forgive you.
It's the same amount of enjoyment, just different types.
Sarah, how else would you have known how hot Amish boys are? That's important information.
Oh my gosh, it's just the perfect boyfriend that you don't have to worry about. But
except he leaves you at the end.
Except he leaves you. But I promise you, Just Ella, eventually, just not at a Christmas episode where we can do things like make you guys read Heartland and Lurlene McDaniel trauma porns. But
I just wonder what you're going to choose next Christmas, because it's going to be hard to top Heartland and Lurlene McDaniel.
Oh, I feel like we're getting close to
Probably
the
do it. We could
random.
probably do it.
Again, we have to do the thoroughbred dead mom book where at the end it all just resets.
Yeah, we could do
like
that.
a great option. That'll be the next one, guys. Christmas will be a great time of year for both of you. Can you tell everyone where they can find you?
You can find us on pretty much all social media. We're still on Twitter for however long that'll last. Maybe
until they start charging us.
Yeah, until they start charging us, or until I have to update my app and it switches over to the icon with an X, because I still have a very old version of the app.
I've been doing the same thing. I've been even afraid to say that out loud. Like, my phone's gonna hear me and be like, you have to update.
Yeah, so you can find us on Twitter. You can also find us on BlueSky. We're a little more active there these days. Instagram, TikTok, social media places. At fictionfanspod is our handle. You can also email us at fictionfanspod@gmail.com. And our website is fictionfanspodcast.com, I believe. And you can listen to the episodes wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on all of them again.
And we have a special Nostalgia Book Club Spotify playlist. So make sure you guys are checking that out for all of our backlog. Usually Fiction Fans is nicer to us than we are to them.
Yeah, remember all the times that we've been on their episodes for Nostalgia Book Club? We're like, wow, this was a great book. I really wish I had read this as a kid.
And then we make you guys come on. And Lily was like, it was funny, haha, but also funny, weird.
As an adult, I enjoyed it. I don't think I would want a child to read it.
Samesies, girl, sames.
Yeah.
And you can find us at OWWR Pod on all the social media platforms. And you can also check out ourpod.com for all the goings on there. Make sure you guys are joining us next week for our romp in December. I believe this is in October, so I'm guessing, I believe it is our Christmas film of the year. Last year we did Gremlins, which people have gone back and listened to and said it was like such a fun episode. So make sure you go back and listen to Gremlins. It is Hannah's new favorite Christmas movie. And find out what we're doing next week, which should be on our pod schedule. All right. Thank you guys again for coming on. Yeah. We love having you on. And I promise maybe next time, Sarah, we will get just Ella.
Hopefully we're all still friends.
I might have been, I don't know. Lily might be the vote to keep me in, guys. She had fun. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.